Hello, everyone. I'm Ulysses, and today I am with Dede Fox, a retired teacher and librarian who started writing poetry with children at the Texas Children's Hospital. And she was also Montgomery County's former poet laureate, sorry if I pronounced that wrong, from 2017 to 2022. And she's also partnering with Writers in Schools nonprofit, which connects children and youth with professional writers and spoken word artists to unlock the joy and power of storytelling. Very nice to meet you today.
Nice to meet you.
So what originally inspired you in writing poetry?
Well, in 2006, I found myself home alone over the winter holiday with nothing to do. And I noticed in the Woodlands Villager that Lone Star College had a contest, a poetry contest that was open to residents. And so I went ahead and I just wrote a poem about happiness because I was trying to focus on positive things. I wasn't used to being alone. I'm part of a big family. That was very strange to me. So surprisingly, it got accepted.
Wow.
Into the magazine. And so it went into the Lone Star Literary Magazine, which is called Swirl. And that opened up all kinds of doors for me because I had a reading at Barnes & Noble on the second floor with the windows looking out on what used to be the Anadarko building and on the skyline and the highway. We would meet there about once a month for poetry readings. And so I started getting to know the poetry community and found out about a poetry class that was being offered at Imprint Houston over the summer. And Dave Parsons, who was state poet laureate in 2011, invited me, suggested that I take his class. And so I went down there and met a group of people in Dave's class, and we worked together for years. We would meet twice a month at, I guess it was like a tavern called The Raven, and we would get their private room and we would eat dinner and we would critique each other's work. And there were really good writers in that class. I would say that most of what I've learned from poetry, I have learned from other poets because I do have a master's degree, but it's not a fine arts master's degree. And so, my friendships and my interest in the number of poetry readings I did and the number of anthologies my work got into grew and grew. And this was a particular interest to me because I had already published a children's historical fiction novel.
Wow, what was it about?
1998. It was about an immigrant to Houston through Galveston. And the details of it I had gotten from interviews with my great uncle and with my grandfather's family because they had immigrated in 1914 through Galveston. So the details were there, but then I made up a story and I had the main character do everything that I wasn't brave enough to do, like run away from home and swim a flooded river and, ride on a train when he shouldn't have been on without a ticket. And so it was a lot of fun to write. And it won an award from the Association of Jewish Libraries. It won a manuscript award. And I had an agent that came up and offered to represent me. And I thought, I've got it made. And I'm really going to be the author I've always dreamed of being. And even though I was still teaching, I was a librarian at that point. But I thought, I've got it made. Well, that isn't how writing works. After a year, she said she hadn't been able to place it. And I got frustrated with the New York market. And wasn't sure whether I could trust that she really had sent it out because she hadn't sent me any records. So I decided to go with a regional press and I sent it to Texas Christian University, who had a wonderful, wonderful editor named Judy Alter. And they accepted it, but I had to wait a while, which is what's typical in traditional publishing for it to come out. So it came out in 1998. And it made me really happy. And I wrote other manuscripts and I wasn't getting them published. And so after that, I thought, okay, look, if I'm not getting them published, I need to work on my craft. And I had been looking at the comments that would come back. First of all, getting comments was a good sign. It meant I had some talent. But it was also telling me what I wasn't doing right. And I came away thinking I'm too much of a teacher when I'm writing, and I'm not being subtle, and I'm being too direct, and I need to show and not tell. And what's better than studying poetry to learn how to do that, to improve my writing? So the immediate success that I got with the poetry was very seductive, because you have to wait so long in novel publishing. And you probably know this.
Yes.
And self-publishing was really not a respected thing then as it is now. I mean, there's so many different roads to publishing now. So in the meantime, I've had books of poetry that have been published, and I've had another novel published, but it was a novel in verse. Mm-hmm. And so I feel like the poetry has served me well. I still have 2 novel manuscripts that I think are worthy of publication, but if they haven't been published, again, I got represented. Somebody took me on as my agent, and then she didn't do anything with it, and then she just quit. Without even giving me the information I needed. So I pressed her, and I did get a list of where she had submitted one novel, but not the other. So I'm at square one on that, and I need to suck it up and start submitting those again. But that's how I got into it.
Wow, that's a really amazing story. And I also love how you also give back to our community and helping children in hospitals to help them discover the joy in writing and just being around them. So what inspired you to do that?
Okay, what inspired me is that my older sister had a blood disease when she was a child, and it affected the whole family. She was one of the first patients of Dr. Fernbach at Texas Children's Hospital in Houston. He was a new hospital then. He was a young doctor. And they didn't have services then for families. Yeah. And I couldn't even visit her if she was in the hospital. And there just was so much fear surrounding, everything. I'm very happy to report that they got the blood disease under control, and she's lived a full life and is 76 years old, and had a family and did all the things that you would want your sister to be able to do. Yeah. And I think that was part of the motivation. But the other part of the motivation is I loved being a teacher and a librarian, and I just don't have the physical stamina for that anymore. And so for me to get to spend time with children, doing what I love with them, which is playing and writing and reading, is a perfect job for me. Yeah. So, now here I am, I'm in my 70s, and I have this perfect job that brings me so much joy. If I go in on Friday mornings and, something just doesn't feel real good, I'm probably tired or feeling old, the minute I get to visit with the kids and talk to them, everything just lifts. And their sisters and brothers are sometimes with them, so I can get stories for them. And you know how writing has that ability to take you away. Yeah, I 100% agree. The only times in my life when I've lost my sense of time is when I was falling in love. Yeah. And when I'm writing. And I see the same thing happens with the kids. They're telling me, I'm typing it up, I'm reading it back to them to be sure I've got it right. They're correcting me. I print it out, and then their families get a book. And I am very fortunate because I don't know what their diagnosis is. I'm not a medical person. And so the way we can relate to each other is just kid to grandma. And what has shocked me is how many teenagers will talk to me, particularly the teenage boys. I thought they would look at an old lady and not really, really have anything to say to me, but they've had lots to say. And it's been so joyful. I've learned, bits about their lives and things I would have known nothing about. And if it's okay, I'll give you an example. Yeah, of course. There's this great website that my coworker told me about. That's about national celebrations. So you can go to it.
Yeah.
And for every day of the year.
I think I know that. Yeah.
Okay. So this celebration was National Goof Off Day. So I go to one of the rooms where there's a teenage boy, hair and cornrows.
Yeah.
You know, you would think he'd have nothing to say to me. And I'm like, hey, you know, it's National Goof Off Day. What would you like to be doing today? And he said he wanted to be playing pool with his grandfather, Terrence, who's quite the pool shark. And he went into everything that he and his grandpa do. He had his ball right in front of the pocket.
Wow. Yeah.
And so for his grandfather to get his ball, you know, into the pocket, he was going to scratch, which is what this boy thought. But Terrence was so good that he knocked his ball so that it bounced off the sides 3 times and went behind his ball into the hole.
Wow.
So I got to hear this great story that I never would have heard. And he was in a good mood, just having a great time, no matter what he was there for treatment. It was a chance to just be himself and not be the sick kid.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's just, I just love it.
I just want to say we really appreciate for everything you do. I think that's absolutely amazing. And also, you are a former librarian. And what do you believe is the importance of books in children's lives?
Well, for me, it was a great escape and a great way to learn about other worlds. I'm interested in other cultures and other places.
Yes.
But as one of 4 kids, I wasn't able to travel to when I was young. And so books could take me where I wanted to go. And I think the books have benefited me because I'm looking through other people's eyes. And it allows me to empathize with all the people I've worked with. I've worked with so many people. I mean, librarians can see 650 people easily in a day.
Yeah.
And it's helped me to gain the ability to work with people.
Yeah. And I would say like a lot of kids right now tend to use social media more than books. And I think that something needs to be addressed because I think books can first, help with your critical thinking skills and your writing skills. And I think that it's kind of cliche that when, parents say like, oh, you use your phone too much. But I remember when I was young, my parents were really strict about not giving me a phone. So when I was like in elementary, middle school, I didn't have, that phone privilege. And what I would do, I did read a lot of books when I was a kid. And I found that reading books can be really beneficial. It definitely helped me with my writing and reading skills. And if you didn't know, English wasn't my first language. My first language was Mandarin. But reading just a lot of books really helped me, speak English, but also understand the writing. So that's why I love books so much.
Right.
And I just want to ask, what was the first book you written and what was it about?
Oh, well, the first book I wrote is the one that was published the first story I wrote was my autobiography when I was 9, and it was very short. And I'd done it on a typewriter, and I just, I didn't know where to go. Done anything. But she saved it for me.
Really?
So I have that tucked away in some bin somewhere. But the first one I had published that was a book was The Treasure in the Tiny Blue Tent. And that was the immigrant story that I was telling you about. And it's about, this Jewish immigrant who is bullied by the blacksmith's son. And then, I don't want to give too much away, but when the Jewish boy runs away, the blacksmith's son follows him out of town. And they form a friendship and a bond and really end up helping each other. And it's a book that I think still has relevance today when people are so polarized, that to find the commonalities and build relationships. So I'm proud of it. I've also had nonfiction articles that have been published in the Highlights for Children magazine. And so I don't really stick to one genre, which maybe is a mistake, but some things seem to lend themselves to one form of writing. And I get an idea that I'm excited about, and then I have to follow it to that form of writing. So, and again, that allowed me to interview kids and to interview other people, which is fascinating. So I got to interview the Houston Ballet's headmistress for all the costumes. And I got to take a photo of one of the young ballerina students who's now a soloist in the ballet. And when I went to visit my grandchildren in Taipei, and I was in their school library, they had the Highlights magazine with my article. So that was one of my proudest moments of being an unfamous writer.
And when you were a librarian, how did you choose the books that you recommend to young readers, considering like the wide range of books and genres out there?
Right. Well, what I did is when somebody didn't know what they wanted to read, I asked them what was their favorite thing to do. Mm-hmm. And then if they, and I would ask them, do you like fantasies better? Yeah. Do you like realistic stories better? And then I would personally go with them and offer them several books and see if they liked one of them. And that seemed to work really well. Plus, there was an intermediate school series books were really popular. Yeah. So I had this binder on the counter in the library, and if somebody wanted me to order a certain series of books or a particular title, they would put it there. And I would check on it, but then I would order it. And one time I had two boxes on the counter in the library, and one said good books and the other one said bad books. And kids could put the book in one or the other.
They like rank the books?
Yeah, whether they thought it was good or bad. And then what happened is other kids would come up and they would get into an argument.
Oh.
It's a good book. Yeah. So they were talking about the books, and I love that, and it kind of breaks my heart to see the censorship that's going on. Yeah. I let my daughters read whatever they wanted to read, but I read a lot of the same books. Yeah. And we would discuss anything that they wanted to discuss or I wanted to discuss.
I think the most joy of reading is it's the reading, but also discussing with other people. And I really love, talking about just like books we've read with my friends or family as well. And just like, because I think that, when you read a book, people have different perspectives when they read a book as well. And just talking about it and discussing like, hey, like, what did you like about the book? What did you not like about the book? What's your favorite part of the book? Like, everyone's opinions is different. And I think that's the great part of reading.
It is. Yeah. But if you find a favorite author or favorite series, then that can, get you going on those for a while, the avid readers. Yeah. So are you a fast reader?
I would say I'm a fast reader if I really like the book. I personally love a lot of sci-fi and fantasy books. So if there's like a really good sci-fi or fantasy book series, I would read pretty fast. One of my favorite books is The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, and it's like a sci-fi book about this guy who's...
I've read that one. I can see the cover in my mind, but I don't think I've read it.
You should read it. I won't give a lot away, but it's about this guy who was captured by aliens, right? So he was at this home and he got captured by aliens, and then after that he gets on this like alien spaceship, and then their objective was to find out what like the meaning of the universe and life is. And they just go on this like,
it's fabulous.
And they go on this like really incredible mission, just like throughout the galaxy to find out what the answer to universe is. But they make it really funny though. It's a really fun book. So moving on, that's a perfect segue, because what are your top 3 favorite books and why?
I've been asked this question before, and I like so many books. I don't know. I can tell you my mom's favorite book growing up was The Secret Garden.
Oh, wow. I think my mom's too. The Secret Garden, yeah.
Yeah. And it was the mystery of it and the whole idea of the secret garden and, the mystery of what was going on in the creepy Gothic house. And so I read that and I liked it a whole lot. Now looking back at it, there are all these historical truths, like with the colonial period, her parents died of cholera in India. And and I think there's a character. Yeah, she has a nanny who's Indian, and she doesn't treat her that well.
Yeah.
Really.
Mhm.
So there are a lot of things that I see in it now, but it still is a magical story. And again, it's one that I would put on a shelf in any library, but I would want to hold a discussion of. The Wizard of Oz books.
Oh, yeah.
My dad had a friend who was in the Korean War, and he left his set of books to my father because he knew my dad had all these children that he read to. And so my dad would read to me in their first printing books. And I loved that series. And I particularly liked one about... This is really strange, but it's called Ozma of Oz. And it was about this young boy, and there are all these magical transformations in the book. She ends up being the Princess of Oz.
Oh, okay.
Which people would have plenty to say about now, but it was just very innocent and fabulous, that book. And I'm sure I responded to the girl being the lead.
Yeah, I think it's kind of similar to, like the Lion and the Witch in the Wardrobe.
Yeah.
Like Narnia. Yeah, the magical world.
Yeah.
It sounds very similar.
Yeah.
So, I'd say my top 3 books. The first one is The Odyssey. I was actually named after Odysseus. My name is Ulysses. Yeah, and then obviously The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. I'm a really big fan of like sci-fi and fantasy. And then my third one, I think this is like the first classical book I read, which was the Adventures of Tom Sawyer. And I really loved Adventures and I loved the story. It's incredible.
Yeah. Yeah, and there's some people that would want that removed from the shelves.
Really?
Like, the best books are on the banned list. If you look up the banned books, that was there because of some of the language. But unfortunately, it's representative of the time.
Yeah.
It's worthy of a discussion.
Yeah.
But it's such a great adventure. And I loved that book so much. And I loved Huck Finn so much. When I was going to school at Washington U in St. Louis, we made a trip up to Hannibal, Missouri, which is where some of the stories were pretty much set from. And I think got to see the cave that was supposed to be the cave.
the treasure.
Yeah, and I went to all kinds of like Mark Twain type things there. So, yeah.
Sounds amazing. And if you can talk to any author, dead or alive, and who would it be and why? Just to have like discussion or like a cup of coffee with them.
I think Lois Lowry.
Oh.
She wrote The Giver. Many other books.
Yeah.
And I used her as a model, her earlier books.
Yes.
I used her early books as a model when I started writing. I think that learning from other authors is really important. And unless you're using their words, it's not copying, it's patterning.
Yeah.
When I taught language arts or writing, I would use patterning, where I would take a great writer's words and leave some of them out. So somebody is creating a new work using their framework to get a feel for language. And that's some of what I do at the hospital sometimes, where I'll read the poem to them and then they'll fill in the blank.
Yeah. For me, when I was a kid, I was a big. Do you know Geronimo Stilton?
No. Yes, I do.
Yes, he's the children. He's like the little mouse, right?
Yes.
I think I own like every book.
Yes.
Because he read like hundreds because the little books. I own like every book he's ever read, and he's such a. He really got me into reading because at first I thought, reading is boring, but he really made reading interesting for me. So really, I love Geronimo Stilton. And are there any future plans in writing another poem, or like any future plans in writing?
Yes, I write about a poem a month.
Okay.
Now, which is slower than I used to. I have over close to 400 poems.
Really? That's a lot.
Most of them have been in anthologies and everything.
Yeah.
But my energy is not what it used to be. And so I'm not, I'm not writing as much, but the way I'm protecting myself from going into a total slump is that I take online, actually thanks to COVID, there are all these Zoom classes.
Yeah, online.
And so this editor that I'd worked with, he and his partner were Texas Poetry. They owned and published the Texas Poetry Calendar. And I've been in probably 6 or 7 of their books. Well, one of them teaches an online class of other poets who seem to have a Texas connection somewhere along the line, but we're scattered literally from coast to coast. And so we meet on Zoom, and he teaches classes, and then we break out into critique groups with these other poets that we know and really respect, and offer each other advice. And so we look at different forms of poetry, and there are prompts and, books of prompts. And so it keeps me learning. And I would say that my training as a poet has totally been from other poets.
I think it's so much easier like online. I know like with the ebooks, like the e-readers, and also like the online libraries where you can just read books online.
Yes.
It's made like reading so much easier. It's much more accessible, I think.
It is.
Online.
It is. And in our community, there's some accessible literary experiences. The Montgomery County Literary Arts Council has free events where they bring in famous authors. And they're on Thursday nights in G102 at Lone Star. It's totally free.
Yeah.
And you get to really interact with these authors. And I guess the reason I had to think hard when you asked me about what author I would like to talk to is that when I was a librarian, I brought in some of the most famous children's authors. Lois Lowry was one, I didn't bring in. But so I have met and eaten dinner with and had fun with some of the very famous young adults.
Yeah. That sounds amazing.
Great authors.
Yeah.
So it's fun.
And finally, what are some advice you would give to the younger generation of writers?
I would say keep writing, even if the business end of it isn't going the way you would like it to go. You just have to keep after it. And I would say always carry a notebook with you. And the wonderful thing about getting older is that there's more time to notice the little things, like the shades of green on a leaf, as you're walking, and just try to stay open to the world around you.
Learn new things.
Right. And the people watching is great. Because for women, as we age, sometimes we become more invisible to others, but we see a lot.
Yeah.
So the thing about the wise older woman is it's true because we watch.
Yeah. So thank you so much for your time, and it has been a great pleasure interviewing and meeting you.
Yes.
Thank you so much, and I'll see you next time on the next episode.